So now we move on to Chris Roberts, who is calling all the way from Eastleigh, which isn't far at all, nice and local, and is going to take us into the world of housing in D365. So I hand over to Chris.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Connor. Let's try share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see that.
Yep, we got that now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, so thanks for inviting me to come and sort of do a bit of gas bagging about a project I've been working on for just over 12 months now, called D365 for housing, and it's a way that I feel we can really use Dynamics and disrupt the way it's implemented throughout the whole sector. There's some contact information if you want to get hold of me after this. A bit about me. I've worked in housing since 1999 around customer service. So I'm not a developer. I'm not. I think I'm going over to the dark side of the geeks, which I'm enjoying. But generally speaking, it was a customer service background I actually came from. So around the contact centre and housing management within housing. And I've actually worked with Dynamics since 2010. So I worked at a housing association called Amicus Horizon, where we implemented, and when I left, they'd logged just over 1 million cases before we then merged with another housing association to form Optivo, which is in the G15, so one of the largest housing associations. So what are housing associations? Some of you may or may not know this, but they're not-for-profit social landlords that provide homes and support for millions of people across the UK. They're providing more affordable homes to rent and buy and more secure tenancies, and really gives residents or customers the chance to put down roots. So that's kind of their core, but they do lots of other good stuff as well, which you might be aware of. So this is a sheltered accommodation for the vulnerable and elderly. They also have specialist services to support people experiencing domestic abuse, and shelters for the homeless as well. So along with training and apprenticeship for varying people across the whole community. And they work quite closely with local authorities to improve the communities they're working. So this is a lot of the good stuff they do. Don't always believe what you see on the documentaries, who often don't should we say shine a good light on our customers. Most of them are very hard working. So yeah, and they're just making the most of it. Here we go. So one of the key things, sorry, I'll just jump back there, I missed out, was they share a lot of information. So you wouldn't necessarily get Nike and Reebok doing this, but housing associations share a lot of information, the way they work, the policies and procedures, when they're looking after their customers. There's some great examples of that. They share it across the whole sector, which is quite unusual. However, when it comes to technology, we probably don't do it as much as we should. So at the moment, there's quite reliance on some legacy systems and a small pool of quite expensive suppliers. There are certain companies selling the same or similar Dynamics offerings across the whole sector. And sometimes there's a lack of resources, both internally to support the implementation and any ongoing changes within the system. And we all know that Dynamics, as much as we love it, can be expensive to implement, depending on what you're trying to achieve. And when I went out and asked housing associations over a year ago now, they pretty much told me that too expensive, ongoing costs as well, the complexity, and actually one of the things that struck me was the waiting for the product to mature and unsure resources required to maintain. And I think it's not necessarily the product maturing, but I think it's also a cultural thing within the sector and just understanding what's available in the product and how we can use it. So I started a project along with a day job called D365 Housing, and it provides housing associations and non-profit organisations with free, I call them modules for the sake of clarity, but we all know them as solutions for core functions. So these are functions that we do across the sector, They include complaints and dealing with ASB and lettings, some really key stuff that we all do, but for some reason we don't collaborate when it comes to creating this and using the most of this technology. And it's definitely now, Dynamics as a product has come a long way, as we all know, and it really does now enable us to share and implement very similar functions. So they're not exactly the same the way that you implement, and obviously we have slight tweaks in policies and procedures and just the day-to-day workings of the system. But generally speaking, a lot of the core functions are very similar. So what's the benefits of this? Well, the kind of crowdsourced modules that are ready to go for free, so you can't really argue with that. The work itself, so the process I follow is I'll select a particular function, so complaints or ASB, for example, and I'll work on a process. So I'll work with different contacts within the sector to put together a process that they could follow, or they do follow. And then this is replicated within Dynamics, and it's done using just out-of-the-box functionality. So when Microsoft do an update, you're pretty safe when it comes to that. Doesn't include obviously integration with other systems, but it really does give you a springboard really to Dynamics implementation. Does reduce this reliance on housing management systems that have been around for a long time and do cost sometimes some substantial amounts to make any changes in. And as we all know, they'll provide a flexible way of deploying the systems, so we can work with teams, deploy, and then keep going. And really does significantly reduce the implementation costs. Allows us to share knowledge and processes, but also do something with that knowledge, put it into some technology, and enhances the ability to share and compare data, so we can really see, how we're all doing and things we could do better. But for me, and the key thing here is that consistent service to customers in their homes. You've got housing officers who go out and look after customers in their homes, dealing with their questions and queries. They've got access to the same great tech. As we know, it's available everywhere, which when you consider what's happened over the last year is really a bit of a game changer when we compare it to a lot of on-prem solutions. Put together a bit of a roadmap. So over the last year, this is essentially the modules I've worked on. Quite key ones to housing associations, and I'm very aware that there's the Power Platform to consider and another great tech within the Office stack. But what this really does is form that foundation for housing associations to then leap on and make the most of the rest of that kit. So I'm currently working on income, so hopefully that'll be released in March, but you can see some big ones there about the tenancy, the person, the property, and a lot of this is just tweaks to what's already there. Some of it is just additional workflows and fields and a few custom entities occasionally. And that's where I'm heading really until July. So I'll set up a LinkedIn group, and we've got 158 members there, which again feedback on these processes, or just give me general information, or provide policies and procedures for me to then carry on working on the solutions. And I've actually got a members on my site. I have a members area, and we've got 40 organisations that are subscribed now to download the free solutions. So it's looking pretty good, and it's gaining quite a bit of momentum. So yeah, the idea now is for me to do a demo. I'll be completely honest, as it's using out-the-box functionality. You're not going to be wowed by it for you who are experienced Dynamics users, but I think for those of you who are in the sector or have knowledge of the sector, you'll sort of see how potentially one of these solutions can be used. So let me just clear that. Okay, everyone see my screen okay still?
Sorry, yep, we're all good. Yep.
Good. Okay, so you all recognise this, the Sales Hub. I've built most of the actual solutions within the Customer Service Hub. So this could be done in the Customer Service Hub, but for the sales lettings side of things, I've decided to use the actual Sales Hub to get the ball rolling and use some out-the-box functionality really. So we have our leads, what we're all obviously familiar with. And we'll have someone approach us because they're on a new property. We'll take some details from them. Just random stuff. Showing me age there. Didn't put Outlook, did I? From here, we can put if there's a joint applicant as well, because obviously a lot of people will be moving in with someone else. The number of adults in the household. So these are obviously the bits where I've adapted for the use of associations. The local authority involved, obviously this is the standard Dynamics demo data, so we're just going to grab one of those. Where they live at the moment, so we'll just put that one in. There we go, so we'll just save that. So they've made a contact with us. They're going to give us a date they're available to move. So we're going to say Monday. They're going to tell us the number of bedrooms they need, any property type they're after, any property requirements. Obviously from an accessibility point of view, we need to make sure we give them the correct property, the county that's required, and any particular towns. Appreciate Southampton does not endorse it. And the type of tenure as well. So we have a variety of different tenures for customers. So what we go through is the income expenditure that's going to come along with the income phase that's going to land next month. But basically what it means is we can do some analysis and understand what obviously the customer's income and expenditure is, and then what they can really afford and if they need extra support and all that sort of thing. So we can complete that off. Another thing we need to do is an ID check. So there's a custom activity which allows us to do this. What ID we've seen and the reference. And obviously we want to see the original document. We can just mark that complete. So you'd have your lettings team who would work on this, collect the ID, so we've got all the legal documentation we need. We'd put in the dates. We'd also go through and we'd add calendar appointments as you would. So when they view different properties, we can understand what properties are being looked at the most and all that sort of thing. Let's have a look, put that one in there. Can have our viewing. We'll mark complete for the. So we've gone out, we found out what the customer's needs are. We've had the ID check completed and they've come out and viewed the property and they want to proceed with it. So they're happy to proceed today and we've got the property they're interested in. If for whatever reason they're refused, we can then obviously add that information there and follow a different process if required. But we're going to assume this was all good. So again, the standard out of the box functionality, we're basically going to qualify this lead in sales term. But what we're saying is the customer's happy to progress. We're happy with them. They've completed their checks and we're going to move on to the next stage of the process. Now, what this is doing is obviously, as we all know, it converts it to what we say a proper contact record in the system. And it'll also bring across information about from the property. So we can see exactly what property, the information about the property that they're after. So we can see here we've got the property detail, we've got how much rent, and we've also got whether it's ready to let or not. So as a lettings team, we can understand where we are with the property, what needs to be done. If we click on the actual property itself, it gives us a bit more detail. So we've got there, obviously, building number. If the status changed by another team, they can put that there, and obviously we'll be aware of that. Any void information, so who the contractor is, when it's been advertised, who's working on it. And we've got things like alerts. I'll be moving that person one actually, but property alert, so anything we need to know about the property. any certificates, environmental impact. So this follows what's known as the HACT. I'll post some detail about it, but it's basically a sector-wide, I'm trying to think the best way of putting it, organisation who sort of advise on best practice. So these fields follow the HACT guidance on sort of property and information you could hold. So we've got lots of information there. Okay, so we've got the detail here. We've gone along, done a few more checks. They've accepted that the next day. Any benefits the customer may be entitled to, if they are. And the date the tenancy signed. And then we have our moving date, which you know the 15th. Any deposit paid. And the rent due date, just a number there. If the move's cancelled, we can add that information and any reason for the cancellation there. So again, standard stuff that we've just adapted for the sector. Then we just close that as one. And this detail, click on that. So as we know, where these notifications go and who manages them is really down to the housing association. So this would take you a certain part of the way, a large percentage of the way, I'd suggest, and then you'd want some configuration done so it meets the needs of the team who look after lettings and all that sort of thing. So you've got lots of information there. So we've now closed that, and if we go back into Steve, we can see now it's moved him to 10 the High Street, Southampton. We've got a little task here, so to make sure that Steve's okay when he's moved in, we need to arrange a visit. A lot of housing associations do it around 4 weeks after the customer's moved in. So we've got a little reminder there to get in contact with him. As we all know, all the detail that's on the lead and the opportunity gets pulled across, so we can see all that good stuff there. We've got the actual let and the information that's pulled from technically the opportunity, but we would know it as a let. And then it's created a tenancy for Steve as well. So again, we have some basic information on there, type of tenancy and all that sort of thing. And then from there, we use this. We can add cases and do whatever we need to do in that from then on. Really, I think that's probably it for the demos. We'll just flick back to. Is me thinking I actually closed it. There we go. Okay, so yeah, that's what we went through, using the leading opportunity for the lettings process, showed how the ID check activity could work, showed the creation of the tenancy once we'd conferred the opportunity, and run through the property entity. And amazingly, nothing froze on me, assuming you're all still there, of course. Any questions or queries?
Firstly, thank you very much. That's a brilliant insight. We did have some questions, so let me grab them for you.
Cool, thank you. I've stopped sharing now, so I can see.
We've got Lee's beautiful face.
Like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So the questions were: are the modules, might have got answered in your demo there, I think, but are the modules dependent on D365, or can they be used with the Power Platform directly?
At the moment, they're just for D365. They depend on that at the moment. But so what I showed you was the roadmap until July this year. As I say, I'm aware there's lots of other good stuff that we can use in the Power Platform and the Microsoft 365 stack. And I'll put together a new roadmap for July onwards, really, and that will definitely incorporate that sort of good stuff. And looking at Internet of Things and AI and all that, so you can see the potential for that really across the board. But it's so important for the housing association to get that foundation right. Yeah,
definitely. And you can definitely come back and show us when that roadmap's developed even further. That would be great.
Yeah, sure.
The other question was, are you using case management for complaints?
Yes, I am. Yeah. So it's built in the customer service hub. And yes, I've sort of used the case entity, and I've made a custom entity to pick up some of the key information about the complaint and the process we follow. I think it's two stages, and it follows the recent Ombudsman guidance that come out. I think it was the latter part of last year. So that's available there as well. And all you need to do is sign up, become a member, and if you're a HA, housing association, or a member of the public sector, they're yours for free, really.
Fantastic. No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, and it really gives a good background into the housing association and the challenges that you're showing there. And I think the industry is crying out for a digital transformation, and I think it's a great springboard for that. So, no, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you very much.